Hi, I'm Ishani and I'm the face behind Woolwalla on Instagram. And I've got a very special guest with me. This is Mindy and she's going to be helping us teach you how to make the Monet tank by Wool and the Gang. Okay, so in your kit, you're going to find your Alpachino Merino wool from Wool and the Gang. You're then going to find your 6.5mm straight needles. You'll also find your 5mm circular needles. You'll also find your Made Unique by Me label from Wool and the Gang, which you can add at the end of your work. And you'll find a tapestry needle, sometimes called a sewing needle. You'll also find your pattern, which has everything you need to know to make this tank. As well as everything that's in your kit, you'll need some scissors, and you'll also need a tape measure. You'll also need some yarn markers. You can use scrap wool or you can use some pre-bought ones. All of the techniques shown in this video can also be seen in detail on the Wool and the Gang YouTube site. Before you get started, you should make a tension swatch. This will make sure that your final piece matches perfectly to what is written in the pattern. Let's start knitting the front panel. Okay, so for your first step, you're going to take one ball of your Alpachino Merino wool and you're going to take your 5mm circular needles. We're going to be using the long tail cast on technique to cast on your stitches. Create a slip knot like so and just pull it through like that to make a nice loop. Put that in one of your needles like this and pull to make it nice and tight. So what you'll do now is you'll pick up your working yarn with your index finger and grab it with your other fingers like so. Then you'll put your thumb around your working yarn and just grab that end as well in there. Make sure they're nice and tight on your fingers. Next, you will pick up this side of your yarn on your thumb with your needle, go round like that to your index finger, and then back through the loop like that. Let your thumb go and just pull. There, you've got your first cast on stitch. Make sure it's nice and loose because you want it to be super elastic. And then I'm going to show you that one more time. So grab your working yarn with your index finger, make sure it's nice and secure with your other fingers, put your thumb through the tail end and then just loop it like so, put it around like that and back through the loop, let it go and pull. That's your next stitch. I'll be casting on 94 stitches as I'll be doing the size 2 in the pattern. I'm just casting on my last stitch in my first cast on row. Now you're going to turn your work. You do this by simply just flipping it over and switching hands. So what you're going to do now for your first row is you're going to do a 1 times 1 rib stitch. This is just the alternation of a knit stitch and a purl stitch. So your first stitch will be a knit stitch. This is where you take your right hand needle, you insert it through your left hand needle on the first stitch in the front like this. And then you take your working yarn, you loop it around like this. You take your right hand needle down and just make sure you're catching that stitch that you just looped round. You take it up and then you just pull your stitch right over the top like that. So that's your first knit stitch. Now we're going to do a purl stitch. So just put your working yarn in front of your work like this. So a knit stitch is behind your work and a purl stitch is in front of your work. So you're just going to keep it in the front like so. Put your right hand needle down through your left hand stitch, right like that. Then loop it around like so Make sure you're catching that stitch that you've just looped on when you pull it out like this, and it should come through the back, and then just slip off your stitch. Now you have a knit and a purl stitch. So you'll just keep on doing this until the end of your row. And the last stitch should be a knit stitch because you've cast on an even number of stitches. So with your last stitch, just make sure it's nice and tight, and then just pop it over like that. And then you can just repeat that. So you just start with your knit stitch again. Every row of your ribbing should start with a knit stitch. And then just keep going for about 15 rows or until your work measures 7 centimeters from the cast on edge. Okay, so we've just finished our ribbing section. So now we're going to move on to the next section, and it will start with a decrease row. So you'll use your 6.5 millimeter straight needles. So just take one of those for now. You're going to start your decrease row with just a simple knit stitch, just as you would for the ribbing row. And just take your needle like this, loop it around, pull it out and catch it, and slip it off. So the next section, you'll be doing left leaning decreases, and that's what some people call a slip slip knit. This might sound scary, but it's super simple, and I'll show you how to do that now. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert your right needles into the next stitch as you would for your knit stitch, like so. And then just pull out your left needle like this. So you've just slipped your first stitch on. You're going to do that again for your next stitch. So you're just going to put it in like you're knitting, and then just pull it out and slip it on. Next, we're going to knit these 2 stitches together. So you take your left hand needle and you put it through your first stitch, and then you put it through your second stitch, like so, in the front. Loop your working yarn around your right hand needle, and then just pull your 2 stitches over your right needle to the back, and then just let go. So that's your first left leaning decrease. You're going to make however many left leaning decreases as your pattern requires for your size. So for size 2, I'm going to be making 3 left hand decreases. So now I've made my 3 left leaning decreases, 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do the section that's in the stars in your pattern. That just means that you'll have to repeat it a certain amount of times after you've done the first step. So what we're going to do for that section is we're just going to do a left leaning decrease again. So that's just your slip, and then your slip, and then your knit again. And then you're just going to do a normal knit stitch after that. After you've done those 2 stitches, you're going to repeat a further however many times your pattern states. Mine says I have to do it 12 more times for size 2. Okay, so now I've just finished my left leaning decreases on this side, and then we're going to move on to the right leaning decreases on this side. So what you're going to do is you're going to knit 2 stitches as though they are 1 stitch. And you'll do this by just knitting them like you would any other stitch. So take your right hand needle down to the bottom of the stitch, like so, and lift it through like you would for any knit stitch. Loop it round and make sure you're catching both of those stitches on the way down. Take your needle back up, bring both stitches to the top, and just let them drop. And there you have your first right leaning decrease. And now I'm just going to knit 1 as the pattern states. And then you're going to repeat that as your pattern states. Okay, so now I finished the section inside the 2 stars on your pattern. And afterwards, we have to just make a couple more right leaning decreases. So just pick up your needles again. And now you're just going to be doing your knit 2 together, like so. And you'll just be doing that in a row for as many times as your pattern states. So mine says that I need to do it 4 times for size 2. So that's 3, 4, and now you've got one last stitch left. And all you have to do with that is just knit it as you would any other stitch. There you go. So for this section, we're just going to be doing stocking stitch, and that's just alternative purl and knit rows. So your first row is going to be a purl row, and then your next one is going to be a knit row. Your next one after that will be a purl, and so on. So the way to just do your purl stitches is the same with ribbing. So you're just going to take your other 6.5mm needle, put your yarn in front of it, put it through the front loop, loop it round, pull it out, catch that stitch, and then drop it. And then you'll just be doing that same stitch as for the whole row. So now we're going to do a knit row. So you're just going to knit all of your stitches on this row, and then just carry on until you have reached the end of your row. This section will make up the main body of your tank. So just keep alternating your rows. So do 1 knit row, 1 purl row, and carry on like that until your piece measures 27 centimeters, which is approximately 33 rows for size 2. So now I've just finished the stocking stitch section of my work, and make sure that the last row in your work is a purl row. And now I can start shaping the armholes, which will include some increases and some decreases. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take your work and you're just going to knit the first stitch as you would for any stitch, like so. And now you're going to take your yarn markers. So just take your scrap yarn if you're using it and put it through your tapestry needle, and then put it through that stitch that you just knit, like so. Pulling one of the ends out and leaving one of the ends on the other side. You're going to tie a knot there so it stays nice in place, and then we can carry on with the rest of our row. Your next stitch will need to bring the yarn forward in front of your work, and then we're just going to slip the first stitch purlwise. So go into the stitch as though you're purling your stitch, and then just slip it on. Now you're going to take your yarn behind your work like this, and then you're going to just knit the next stitch as you would any other stitch, like so. And now we're going to do a left leaning decrease. So that's just, again, your slip, slip, and then knit. And now you're going to just knit normally until you have 5 stitches left of your row. So now what you're going to do is you're going to do a right leaning decrease. So that's just your knit 2 together as though they are one stitch. So just put your needle through as though you are knitting both those stitches. Loop it round, bring it out to the front, and then just drop those 2 stitches. Your next stitch will just be a normal knit stitch, nice and easy. Now here what you're going to do is you're going to bring your working yarn to the front of your work as though you're doing a purl stitch. Then you're going to slip your next stitch purlwise. So you're just going to put your needle in as though you're purling it, slip it off, and then now you're just going to take your working yarn and put it to the back. And then you're just going to take your next yarn marker. So I've just got another scrap piece of wool, I'm going to put it through this stitch now, over here, like so. Pull out the tapestry needle. Put a knot in it, like so. Keep your yarn at the back of your work because your next stitch is just going to be a normal knit stitch, like so. There you go. You have your first decreased row of the armholes. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you're going to do the next section, but just make sure that your yarn markers stay in place because this will help you when you are seaming. So what you're going to do for this row is you're going to take your working yarn and you're going to hold it in front of your work, and you're going to put your right hand needle into the first stitch as though you're purling it, and then just slip it off. You're going to take your working yarn behind your work like so, and then you're going to just knit your next stitch like this. You're going to put your working yarn back in front of your work like this, and then you're going to slip your next stitch purlwise like so. You're then going to now just purl until you have 3 stitches left of your row. So with these stitches, all you're going to do is you're going to keep your yarn at the front of your work like this, and you're going to slip the next stitch purlwise. So just super simple like that. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your working yarn and you're going to put it to the back of your work like that. And then you're going to knit your next stitch. Just making sure that you've got all of the yarn in there. And then you're going to bring your yarn forward again. And then you're just going to slip that last stitch purlwise, like so. So now just keep on following your pattern until step 14. All of the steps between then and now are just variations of the last 2 things we've learned. So I've just finished up to step 14 on your pattern, but I think I'm going to run out of wool for the next row. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the next ball of wool and you're just going to open that up. Find your end. And all you're going to do to join your new ball of yarn is you're going to take the end of your other one, make it nice and long so you have enough to weave in. Tie it around your yarn that you already have attached to your work. So put it underneath and then just tie a knot, just a simple knot like that. Bring that knot up by just pulling on these 2 ends right up to your work, nice and tight against it. Now you're going to start the increase row. Knit the first stitch with your new ball of yarn. So what you're going to do is you're going to move your yarn forward, and then you're going to slip your next stitch purlwise like this. Then you're going to take your yarn back, and then you're going to knit your next stitch. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to do an increase. So you're going to find in between your stitches this little bar over here, just there. So you're going to take your right needle and hook it into this bar over here, and then you're going to take your left needle and just pop it in there. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your right needle and knit through the back of that stitch. It's a little bit tight, but don't worry. So you're just going to knit through the back like that. Loop it round, bring it out, and then drop that stitch. So it's going to feel a little bit tight, but honestly, don't worry, it will loosen up as you go along. And then you're just going to knit until you have 3 stitches left of your row. So with these next 3 stitches, you're first going to increase a stitch. So take that bar over here and then put your left needle through it like you did for the beginning. Take your right needle and put it through the back, like so. If I can do it like that. Put it around your working yarn, take it out, and then drop that stitch. Your next stitch, you're just going to knit it like normal. Now you're going to bring your yarn forward, and then you're going to slip the next stitch purlwise, like so. Now you're going to take your yarn back, and then knit your final stitch. Just carry on with your pattern now until step 18, and we'll meet you so that we can start shaping the front of your neckline. So now we're at step 19 of your pattern, where we're going to decrease the rows in order to shape the front neckline. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your work and you're going to knit the first stitch like so. Next, you're going to take your yarn and put it in front of your work, and then you're going to slip the next stitch purlwise. Then you're going to take your yarn and put it towards the back of your work, and then you're going to knit the next stitch just as normally. Now you're going to knit the number of stitches stated in your pattern. Mine says that it's 12 for size 2. Okay, now you're going to start casting off so that will make the front of your neckline. So what you're going to do is you're going to knit 2 stitches to start. So you're going to do 1 and then 2. So the first stitch you just knit, you're going to take your left needle and put it underneath through the front loop, like so. And all you're going to do now is I'm just going to move my work up a bit to make it easier. You're just going to take that stitch that you've got on your left needle and pull it over your right needle, like that. And then just drop it. So now you've cast off your first stitch. So let me show you that again. So with this one, this is your other stitch that you're going to cast off. So take your right needle and just knit a normal stitch like this. Take your left needle and put it underneath that first stitch like so. Lift it up over your right stitch. It might feel a little bit tight, but that's okay, that's normal. So just lift it up and then pull it over like that. And then that's your second cast off stitch. So just continue casting off and depending on what your pattern says. And that will shape the front of your neckline. I'm going to be casting off 19 stitches. So I am just going to double check how many stitches I've cast off. And the easiest way to do this is to just go back to the pattern. In your pattern, it will say you'll come back to the other stitches later, and then it will give you a couple of numbers. Refer to the number that is for your size. For size 2, it says 15. So I'm just going to count out whether I have 15 stitches left on this row. So I've got 5, 10, 15. So now I have 15 stitches left on my needles, including on this side and this side, so 15 altogether. So now all you're going to do is you're going to knit until you have 3 stitches left on this side on your left hand needle. Okay, so now I've got 3 stitches left on the left hand needle. So with these stitches, all you're going to do is you're going to knit the first stitch like normal. You're going to take your yarn and you're going to put it in front of your work, and then you're going to slip the next stitch purlwise like so. And then you're going to take your yarn back like this and then knit your final stitch of the row. So now we're going to be working along these stitches here to make up your shoulder. So just slip the first stitch purlwise with your yarn in front. like this. Put your yarn at the back and then knit the next stitch like normal. Put your yarn in the front like this and then slip the next stitch purlwise. Now just purl to the end of your row. So now you can see that your other stitches are just secure and nice on this side of the needle, so you don't have to do anything with them, you can leave them exactly as they are. So when you're turning your work, all you have to do is just turn your needles around like this, so that your working stitches are on this side and then the ones that we're not working on yet are on this side. So for the next step, all you're going to do is you're going to make a left leaning decrease to begin with. So that is just a slip, slip, knit. So just slip that first stitch onto your right needle, slip the next stitch, and then knit those two together through the front loop, like so. They might feel a little bit tight, that's okay. Next, you're going to just knit until you have 3 stitches left of your row. And with these stitches, what you're going to do is you're going to knit the first stitch like this. You're going to move your yarn forward and then you're going to slip the next stitch purlwise like this. You're going to take your yarn back and then you're going to knit your final stitch. So just follow your pattern now until step 26, when we will start shaping your shoulder. So now we're shaping your shoulder and this starts at step 26. So what you're going to do is you're just going to purl that first stitch, purl the second stitch too, and then you're going to move your yarn back and then just pick up as you would for a cast off and then cast off that stitch. So that's 1 stitch cast off. I have to cast off 3 stitches. So just purl that next stitch again, move your yarn back, put it over, cast it off. Move your yarn forward, purl again, move your yarn back, and then just cast off. Now we're just going to continue to purl and we'll see you at step 30 once we've finished the cast off of this side. So now we're going to rejoin your yarn to your remaining stitches for your other shoulder. So take your yarn and put your tapestry needle through it. Get your first stitch and put your tapestry needle through the front loop, like this. Pull it through. You can take your tapestry needle out now and then just tie a knot right up close to your stitch. With your first row on your next shoulder, you're just going to purl until you have 3 stitches left of your row. Just continue to follow your pattern as you did for the other shoulder and cast off, ready to start the back. Okay, so now you've got your front piece done and you've got your back piece done. And what we'll do now is we'll sew your shoulder seams together using the horizontal invisible seam technique. So what you're going to do is you're going to have the right sides facing you and you're going to take your shoulders, which is just this bit where you cast off here and this bit where you cast off here. You can line them up right until the end like that. So that's your shoulder seam there. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a little piece of wool, tie a knot in it on this side, and then put it through a tapestry needle. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the V shapes on your rows, and that's what you're going to be using to seam. So on this side, you can see there's a V shape here. This is one side of it, and there's another side here. So these two make a little V. So pull your yarn through there until you've reached your knot. And same on the other side, what you're going to do is you're going to find the V. So you've got one side of your V here, and you've got one side over here. So that makes a nice V. So just pull your yarn across. So next we're going to find the next V, which is just here in your next row. So as you can see, it's just here, like that. So you can see it just goes along the next row like that. So just take your yarn through that V, like that. Find your V on the other side. So that is here and here, like that. And then pull your yarn through again. So that will make sure that it's really nice and visible seam. So now you've seamed your shoulder, and make sure you secure your yarn at the end by just tying a knot. Okay, so now we're going to start working on your neckline, and you're going to use your 5mm circular needles to do so. So what we have to do first is we have to pick up some stitches along the neckline and along the back. Make sure you follow your pattern to know how many stitches you go along the front and the back. So to pick up stitches, all you do is you turn your work like this, so that that cast off edge is looking at you. And you can see these little V's there, right? So find your first V. So my first V is here, these two here. And what you do is you stick your needle through that first V, that first leg of the V, and the second leg of the V. Make sure you catch both of those. Take your yarn and wrap it around your needle, just like that. You don't need to secure it yet. You can just leave it quite open. Because what you want to do is you want to make sure that there's enough wiggle room, basically. So just take your needle out as though you've knit that stitch. So just pull it back out, catch that yarn on the way out, and you've got your first picked up stitch. So you've got your V here, you've got 1, 2, like legs, and you just put your needle through both of those legs, wrap your yarn around, pull your needle down, back through, make sure you're catching that yarn, and up. So just again, you've got your V's there, you've got one there, one there. You just make sure that your needle goes through both of them. So I've got one there and one there. Wrap your yarn around, pull your needle out, and there you have it. You've got three stitches that you've picked up. Just continue picking up stitches along your front, and we will stop when you get to your shoulders so that we can show you how to join. Just bear in mind that you'll have more stitches that you pick up in the front than you do at the back because it's a deeper sort of neckline. Just follow your pattern to make sure you've got the correct number of stitches. Okay, so now you've got to your shoulder, your other shoulder. And what you're going to do to just join up your work is you're just going to take, easy peasy, you're just going to take the next V on your other side and pick it up as though it was already joined. So just take that V over there, put your yarn around, and then take it out. And then you've already started your back piece. So just take a note of how many stitches you need to pick up on your back piece, and then you've got it. Okay, so I've just picked up my last stitch on the back. So now what you're going to do is you're just going to turn your work around so that the wrong side is sort of facing you on the inside. Take your other needle, and what you're going to do is you're just going to start doing your rib stitch, just as you did on the hem. So that's just, you're going to just do one knit stitch, and then one purl stitch, and then just carry on like that for your whole row. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to carry on to doing your rib stitch until your piece measures approximately 7 centimeters, which is about 15 rows usually. And then what you're going to do is you're going to cast off, and then we'll show you how to do the whip stitch so that you can finish off your neckline. Once you have finished your ribbing and you've seamed your second shoulder seam, turn your work inside out. Then what you're going to do is you're going to fold your ribbing over in half so that the cast off edge lines up with the cast on edge, like this. So I've already started seaming a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the whip stitch to stitch up all of these really nice and neat. So with your whip stitch, you're going to look at your V's again. So if you turn your work a bit like this, you'll see the V's like that. You're going to take this leg of the V, the outermost edge, right here. And then on this side, you're going to look at your V's like this. And then you're going to take the outermost edge like that. So let's just do that. So you're going to take your needle and you're going to put it through the V leg like down, like that. And then through the other V leg like that. And then pull it through. Let's do that again. You're going to put your needle like that, through there, and then up through this V, like that. And then just carry on until you have reached the end of your row and then secure. So now that you've finished your neckline, you're going to start seaming the sides of your work with the vertical invisible seam technique. So we're going to start at the bottom of your work where your ribbing is, and we're going to move up to where your yarn marker is. Then you're going to take your yarn and you're going to put a knot at the bottom of it, and you're going to thread the other side through a tapestry needle. So first, the knot has to be at the bottom of your work. So what you're going to do is you're just going to take your tapestry needle and put it through this first two sort of loopy bits. So you're just going to put it up through there like that. So that's just nice at the bottom so you don't have to see it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to pick up some stitches in between so that it's nice and invisible. So if you pull out your work like this, you'll be able to see these little bars in between. What we're going to do is we're going to seam with those bars. And on the other side, what you do is you just pull out where the V's are. If you pull out there, you just pull that out a bit clearer for you. You can see the bars on that side too. So let's begin. So on this side, you're going to pull it out so you can see the bars nicely. And I'm going to pick up my first bar there, like that, and just put my tapestry needle up like that and just pull my yarn through, nice and tight. On this side, we're going to find our other bar, which is just here. Put the tapestry needle through and pull it up. And there you go. And just carry on like that until you reach your yarn marker. So it's exactly the same when you're going to the stocking stitch section. You just find the bar in between the stitches. So you can just pull it apart and you can see the bars just there. So now you've pretty much finished everything you need to do. All that's left is weaving in your ends. I know this can be quite time consuming, but it's worth it in the end. So what you're going to do is you're going to thread your tapestry needle through one of your ends. You're going to go down through this loop here, up through here, and then pull it through. You're going to follow this bump round to this stitch over here. Over here, like that. And then just pull it through. And then you're going to go back down to your first stitch here. Then just follow that bump again through here. And then up through here, through that loop that you've already done. And pull it through. Follow that bump round, so this one, like that. Put it through the stitch you've already done, like that. So just keep on going until you've used about 8 to 10 centimeters of yarn. Now that you've finished, we're hoping you feel like a master maker. Thanks for knitting along with me and Mindy today, and we hope you like our video and your Monet tank. If you want to see more, subscribe to the Wool and the Gang YouTube.